baseline break, developing a baseline break. What does that even mean? Well, if you click this video, you're looking to improve your break and you're in the right place, okay? But this isn't going to be me giving you some magical break from this spot, break this way. You're gonna make a ball every single time. No, that's not what this is. This is, you could view it as a drill, okay? This is a pool drill, okay? Now I'm gonna give you some rules, some ground rules, some fundamentals we're gonna talk about, and we're gonna talk about a little bit equipment that you're gonna invest in, but don't worry, it's not gonna break the bank. Trust me, you've spent tons of cash on the equipment that you play this game with. You can spend just a little bit, a few more pesos, okay? And what this is gonna do is gonna hone in your break. And then from there, once you've developed your baseline, you can adjust it from there to get the break that you want, okay? Let me explain. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you've never been here before, I am Andreas and I do pool videos. And I think you're gonna like this one here because breaking is a pretty darn important part of us running out, okay? Us succeeding at this game. If we have a garbage break, chances are it's gonna hurt us. So our goal is to have a good break, a controllable break, a repeatable break, consistent, okay? So that's what this is. This is a baseline break drill, okay? So let's start with the equipment, okay? Let's get right at it. 3 pieces of equipment. You've got the most expensive piece of equipment already. I guarantee you, you have a phone. The cameras on these phones, phenomenal, okay? Cheap tripod, okay? I have a light stand I'm just not using, okay? I'm using my tripod over there on my camera, but just buy yourself a cheap light stand. This is a newer off of Amazon, or go to your local store and just get a cheap $30 tripod, okay? It's 30 bucks, it's nothing. Then, Ulanzi phone holder, okay? This is phenomenal. You don't have to get the Ulanzi. I just find that this is high class. I think it's around $30 as well. You can go landscape, you can go vertical, and you can adjust it. There's cheap $12 ones on Amazon, spring-loaded, whatever. The important thing is if you got the threads on the bottom and you screw it into your tripod or your light stand, whatever you got going on, okay? That's the equipment. You've spent, like I said in the intro, you spent tons of money on your break cube. You spent tons of money on your playing cue, okay? You can spend $30 to $60 more on a few other pieces of equipment. Why do you need that equipment? Well, we're gonna be recording 3 angles, okay? I always like to relate this game to golf, okay? And in golf, when we go for a golf lesson, we've got our pro watching us every step of the way and we suck. And when we're taking our lesson, he or she, keep your head down. You're moving. Your grip is wrong. They're on us, right? As pool players, generally we don't have that, okay? Unless you pay for an instructor to teach you, but most of us don't. And why do we have to? Okay, we don't need instructors. We've got YouTube and we've got, you know, there's other ways of doing things in the 21st century. This does not lie, okay? I'm gonna keep coming back to this in this video. Your feel and practical are 2 different things. You may feel like you're not doing something, but the phone camera does not lie, okay? And that's why it's important. It's one of the things that I've learned shooting videos on YouTube. It's like when I'm reviewing the footage, I see, oh, look what I do. I didn't know, I didn't feel like I was doing that. So we're gonna show that more and more in this video, okay? What are the camera angles that we wanna do? Okay, we'll start with the easy one, the rear, okay? So when you go down, the important thing is, in the rear camera angle, is to be as square as possible. And what are we looking at? Mostly the elbow, okay? That's mostly what you're gonna get from the rear camera angle. So when you're down, is your elbow out, cocked in? Just make sure that you're square. That's the least important camera angle, but it's still a good camera angle do a number of breaks to see what's going on, right? You might see a few other things with your body positioning, who knows? The next camera angle is the side, okay? So when you bend down and have it as square as possible, I want you to bring the cue to address meaning that Q-tip is basically touching that cue ball, almost touching the cue ball. That's address, okay? I want your elbow to be perfectly square at 90 degrees because one of the rules of this break here is that we're going to be going forward with it. And if you're too far forward, if you're grabbing your cue too far up on the butt, you're not going to get the effect that we're going for in this drill, okay? So I want your hinge, your elbow, to be at 90 degrees, a 90-degree angle, okay? Because we need some more oomph, okay? The next camera angle is the head-on, okay? What are we gonna be looking for in the head-on? Big one, head movement, okay? You may not feel like your head is lifting. You would be amazed what we're doing when we're breaking. You would be amazed, and you don't see it, okay? You may feel like you're staying down, but the camera does not lie, okay? The other one is your bridge. Watch your bridge, okay? When I first started doing this, I had this notion of when I went and I that bridge doesn't move, okay? It's planted. Third one, and this is a big one as well, is we're breaking straight at this pack, okay? So where does this cue go? This cue doesn't go over here. This cue doesn't. No. Remember, we're planted, but in the end, I want this cue. Here's the line. We're going right at it. The cue, bam. And it sticks. I want you to stick it. Movement is waste, okay? Giving it everything you got isn't always the best thing. We're going to talk a little bit about that, okay? So that's the equipment, and those are the 3 angles. I want you to record yourself. The camera doesn't lie. All right, so what is the actual drill? Okay, I want you to rack a rack of 8-ball. This isn't absolutely necessary, but this is something that I like to do, okay? I rack it in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 15, okay? It doesn't matter that the 8-ball's not in the center. That's not our goal. We're just developing a break, okay? The reason I number it is once you get to a certain point in this drill and you start getting a certain degree of repeatability, if you start sinking a specific ball, and this drill is all about observation, okay? If you start dropping a ball, let's say the 4-ball, every single time, well, then you realize, okay, that position, the 4 position, is a consistent result from the break that I'm doing, okay? But the baseline break is just 1 position, okay? The center, okay? So I want you to take your cue ball, put it right in the center, okay? I want you to hit the 1 ball right in the center, okay? I want you to strike the cue ball right in the center, okay? That's it, okay? What are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish a big spread, a nice spread, okay? But we're also trying to accomplish a consistent cue ball result, which is what? To leave it in the center of the table. And this is what I consider the center of the table, a big circle right here, bam, okay? Easier said than done on an 8-ball. You could do an awesome, perfect, consistent break, but an 8-ball, you've got 15 balls flying everywhere, and sometimes the cue ball gets knocked, right? You did your part, luck did its part, and you weren't that lucky if your cue ball got knocked down to this end rail or something like that, right? But you observe it, okay? That's the key. Just observe it, okay? Now, this sounds super easy, right? Center, 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 right? Should be easy. Now, once you start doing this, you have to watch what's happening, okay? Observation. You're gonna shoot this and your cue ball might go like this against that side rail, okay? What happened there? A few things may have happened, okay? What if your cue ball got air, okay? Happens a lot. Happens a lot is we don't hit the center of the cue ball, and we came down it in a certain way where we actually got a little bit of air. And then once the cue ball strikes, it comes down, maybe it came down before and we did a little bit of hop. So much can happen. So we haven't developed our baseline yet, right? Something in our fundamentals went wrong, okay? Something that I always say is the only thing that really matters is your stroke. So any aiming system, and I'm guilty of it too, I've done aiming systems on my channel, but in the end, if you don't have a good stroke, it's not gonna matter. When you miss, chances are it's your stroke. And this shot, the break, is a stroke, okay? Consider it a stroke, okay? So the first thing I want you guys to work on is the cue ball going to the side, right? If you do this properly, and you're hitting the center of the cue ball, it should be striking the rack and there should be minimal side movement. But you're gonna find very quickly that this is easier said than done, okay? You're putting a lot of power and there's a lot of error. We're not professionals, okay? I'm not a professional. So you will find that you have a lot of error. This should be simple. I'm hitting center. Center of the cue ball. Head on, center of the one ball. Why is that so hard to control? It shouldn't be, should it? Okay, so you work on your side movement. You're gonna get to a point over time where you're gonna start controlling that. That's great, okay? But what's happening now this way, okay? And that's where you're gonna make your first adjustment. Where should you hit on the cue ball? And everybody might be a little bit different, okay? Maybe some people are, their cue ball tends to be coming back here, right? I think that might be a little bit of a problem of you actually not hitting the center. Or it's physics, it could come back, right? A lot of times when we're breaking our 9-ball break, once you get to that point, we are putting just a little bit of top, okay? So you've measured and you've zoned in your side to side, okay? Now you're gonna change your first thing. And one of the rules I didn't mention to you in this drill is you can only change one thing at a time. Why is that? Because we have our baseline, and this is a drill that measures incremental improvements, okay? And we always have to have our baseline. If we don't have a baseline, we have nothing to compare it to, okay? So now that we've zoned in the side to side, now we're trying to zone in and get it so that our cue ball ends up in the center. Why are we doing this? Well, the whole point of this video is to get more consistent at your break, okay? Like I said before, I never concerned myself with it. I just thought, break it hard and, you know, just don't scratch and I'm good enough that I can get out. That's stupid. That's stupid logic, okay? You should want to get every single advantage you can in this game. So controlling the cue ball is a big deal, okay? So that's the end goal. So we hit, now we're going to change one thing. Ideally, for me, I like to have a little bit of a pop and I'd like my cue ball to just die right here in the center, right? Those are beautiful breaks. So depending on what's going on with you, you may have to go a half tip up, okay? You may have to go a half, if you find that your cue ball is going forward often. It's not going side to side, but it's going forward. Maybe you just need to take it a half tip down, okay? One change at a time, okay? Once you zone that in and you're leaving it here, and remember, it doesn't matter if we're making a ball. Just try to get a nice spread and to control that cue ball, okay? Now, at a certain point, you may want to develop your spot, okay? Let's say you're playing 10 ball. Maybe you switch it to 10 ball and you start breaking 10 ball, okay? And Shane Van Bonen breaks from a spot like that, okay? Remember the rule. You are only allowed to change one thing. So do not start breaking from here. What have you done? You've changed the angle, that's one. You've also changed the distance. So we haven't talked about distance, okay? This is a 7-foot pool table, okay? Do you think that a 7-foot breaks like a 9-foot? The answer is no. I brought this up before in other videos, okay? Why? Because the distance between your cue ball and that first object ball is different. So hitting the same weight and having your cue at the same angle, let's say you are getting a little bit of air, and you'd be surprised how many breaks our cue ball does get air, okay? And this is important. You don't break the same way, right? So every table basically is going to have its own baseline, okay? Get that through your head. Just because you break a certain way on a 7-foot on your baseline, you go to a 9-foot, guarantee you have to make a slight adjustment. It's not going to be a lot, but you have to understand that there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment, okay? So when you start developing your break from the baseline, change one thing at a time. So let's say you want to be here, okay? First of all, change the angle. So here's the angle, bring it here. So what have you done? You've changed the angle, but you haven't changed the distance, okay? And now do a whole bunch of breaks, okay? And then once you're happy and the angle is the easy part. The angle is the easy part, okay? Because you've developed this baseline, you've kind of chipped away at the waist of your stroke. So this is going to be easy. However, now you're going to move it back. So now you've changed the distance, right? One thing at a time. Now you've changed the distance. Now you're going to have to adjust the weight at which you're hitting. And now you have to ask yourself, now that I'm changing my weight and I'm hitting a little bit harder, am I compromising my fundamentals? Okay, stroke is everything, right? So does it mean that by breaking from here, now I have to give it that little bit of extra oomph? Am I lifting my head? That's when your camera comes back into play. Okay, measure yourself. Measure yourself. The camera does not lie. So I've mentioned a few fundamentals in this video. I want to go quickly over the fundamentals of what this drill is, okay? So I've talked about, we're going to go in the center. What do I recommend for your fundamentals? First of all, the address, okay? It may feel a little bit odd, but you're going to take your gripping hand and move it back. You may have to take it almost back to the butt. I've only got about an inch here. And when I go down, that's when my angle on my elbow is 90 degrees. So you're going to have to try to zone that in, okay? That camera angle will not lie, okay? So there is that. Loose grip, okay? Bridge, okay? Don't try that, and this may be hard for a few people that are just getting into pool, okay? You may break with an open bridge. It's not going to serve you well in this drill, okay? So if you're at that skill level and you're going to start trying this drill, I would recommend that you learn the closed bridge, okay? Because it's going to basically control your cue stick, right? The shaft of your cue, and make sure it stays on line, okay? So closed bridge, okay? Head down, obviously, on your follow through. Any movement is waste, okay? So when you're down and you're coming through, as much power, well, no, let me refrain from that. The right amount of power with the least amount of movement, okay? Now, mentally, what I want you to think is that your cue is going to come right into this rack. That's the way it has to feel. And that is how we're going to get the ideal follow through, okay? Don't be afraid of your cue touching the cue ball. It's not going to happen. It may happen once in a while. I mean, it happens to anybody, but it's going to feel like that could happen, and you're going to want to move it out of the way. Don't sweat it, okay? So when you come through, like so, I want you to feel like that cue is going to touch that rack, right? Look at where my bridge is. It's past the joint here even, okay? Now, in the end, it's probably going to end there, which is basically halfway through the table. I don't know if that camera angle is going to be able to pick it up, but you can tell here. And that's the progression also, is like, look at, I've got most of mine here, but there's the odd one. You can see it veering this way and that way, right? So there was a lot of error and a lot of waste to my game. This camera angle ahead is going to definitely tell you that, right? When you watch that camera angle, if this comes off the line at all, you're wasting. There's no waste. We don't waste, okay? Just that little bit of waste can affect your cue ball, okay? We're trying to be as square as possible. Everything here is square. So remember, the address, 90 degrees, keep your head down, movement is waist, and feel like you're going to actually hit that rack with your shaft, okay? You can't get there. It's physically impossible to get this far unless you're doing something silly. That's waste. Don't be wasteful. The day might come where you're so controlled and you've worked your baseline to that point where you're going to be doing a Jeff DeLuna insane, amazing break. But it takes time to get to that point. That is not what this drill is. Remember, this is a baseline. So waste is the enemy and observation is your friend, okay? So you've made it this far in the video, and for that, I'm gonna give you my sincerest thank you for doing that. I'm gonna give you a little bit of bonus material here for what is going on in our minds when we do something like this, and it's important for you to remember this, okay? This isn't gonna be too long, but I wanna talk about this again. Many videos I've mentioned the conscious and the subconscious, okay? What does it mean when we start truly working on the break, right? It means, with everything that I've told you here, that we've taken our break out of the subconscious and we've moved it into the conscious. Why did we do something so stupid? Well, it's not stupid. This is how we get to the next plateau. We actually work. So if you think going down in your basement and just breaking and running tables is actually practicing, it's not. That's why people do drills, okay? They're actually practicing, okay? What we're doing here, and this is an industrial slogan that I learned when I was in the welding industry. You set expectation so you can drive performance. So what are our expectations? Well, you know, eliminating waste, keep our head down, you know, don't move your body, try to get a repeatable result, consistency, all that, okay? For setting those expectations and driving that performance, like I said, we've taken it into the conscious, right? You will find that by taking things into your conscious, you will slump more often than not. What do I mean by that? Because when I say slump, what I'm getting at is we get into the zone less. If you've ever been in the zone, it's a wonderful place to be. You're moving around the table, you're running balls, you've got that cue ball on a string, you could set position on a dime, that you could drive the cue ball to that point, right? You're in the zone, you're feeling it. Do you know why you're in the zone? Because you are not thinking, right? Your muscle memory and all the practice that you've done, you're not thinking about that. You're just in the zone, okay? The minute you think about things, right? Ooh, am I gripping my cue too tight, or should I adjust this? You're never gonna get into the zone, okay? But that's okay for this, okay? We have to do this, okay? And we have to give ourselves the visual representation. That's why we film ourselves from those angles, okay? So very important. Don't sweat it if you have difficulties at the start, right? This is learning, and this is what's going to get you to the next plateau. You want a consistent, powerful, repeatable break. And for that, we have to take it into the conscious for a little while. We have to get that muscle memory. And then once we have that, we boot it back to the subconscious, right? Okay, I'm going to give you a quick spiel on breakers, okay? So for the most part, I was using the J Flowers BRKR when I was practicing my break, okay? But then a couple months ago, I ended up getting the loaded. So what just happened? I changed something. And remember, the rule is we only change one thing at a time. So I had to basically go back once I started using the loaded, because it is different, right? The BRKR has a phenolic tip. It's harder than this proprietary tip that J Flowers came out with this. There's probably other differences, right? It's 0.1 of a millimeter tip difference, and the taper might be different, and who knows what they did on the inside. I noticed right away that it was a different hit, so I had to go back to my baseline. So why do I tell you this? A few reasons. One, if you do change your break cue, you just expect that you're going to have to maybe do a little bit of a reset. You will have to do a little bit of a reset. And then also, I always pump J Flowers. They're phenomenal, and bang for your buck, these break cues are amazing. Moving on. So that is it, okay? That's the drill. The key to this is that you are the teacher. The camera is the teacher, and that you are actually learning as you go, okay? Trust me when I say, again, what you feel is not actuality. It's not what's actually happening. Trust me, if you do this drill and you do this setup, you will find waste in your stroke, I promise you. Remember that, okay? I touched on it very, very early in this video. Your stroke, okay? The stroke, hey, the stroke. What does the stroke mean? The stroke in this game is everything. It all boils down to your stroke, okay? If you miss a shot, if you had one of two choices, whether it's your stroke or whether it's the way you're aiming, everyone concentrates so much on the aiming. Not enough people lean towards the stroke. I would pick the stroke more than half the time, right? I can watch a person and see that the stroke is the issue, okay? Doesn't matter what aiming system you use, if your stroke is garbage, chances are you're gonna miss. And I'm not saying that to be harsh, okay? I miss shots, I'm not a professional. I can boil it down to my stroke. It's not the way I'm aiming, it's my stroke, okay? Insane what the mind can do when you're in a pressure situation. Doesn't matter how much practice you do down in your basement. When that heart starts pumping and the mind starts, it's insane how your stroke goes. Anyways, that's a tangent now, and I'm going to digress. As usual, I got to digress. I got to end this video, everybody. Head to the table and try this drill. Consider it a drill, okay? And remember, once you have your baseline, then you can start that one change, and then the next change, and then hone your break in. Change the game. Go to 9-ball, okay? So 9-ball, generally we break from the side. Doesn't matter. Break head on. So you got your baseline, you've got the distance, you've got the feel, then change the angle. Go to the side. Remember, eliminate the waste. Just because we're playing 9-ball doesn't change the fact that we control the waist. Keep your head down, extend, follow through, keep that cue on the line, everything that we've talked about, okay? And try to control that cue ball. That's the important thing. We want that cue ball in the center of the table, okay? Something we didn't talk about here very quickly is maybe you want to do a cut break, okay? All right, it doesn't matter. Do your cut break, but work your way to it, okay? Work your way, change one thing at a time, okay? That includes your weight, right? The cut break is a little bit different. Maybe you want to break from the side in 8-ball. On a 7-foot, that's the only table of the size of table that I would try that, but on a 9-foot, I'm breaking head on, but on the 7-foot, I break second ball a lot. Same thing, develop your baseline, change one thing at a time, work your way to that second ball break. The important thing is waist, okay? And then once you've got your muscle memory, boot it to the subconscious so you can get back into the zone. That's the important stuff, everybody. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please, again, subscribe. That would mean the world to me. That's everything. Head to the table, guys. In the meantime and in between time, I will catch you on the flip side.